He man behind the whisper. People thought they knew Don Williams, but they didn't. For 3 decades, millions fell in love with his voice, while an entirely different version of his life moved quietly in the background. The world heard gentleness, warmth, and calm, yet very few ever saw the private man who lived far from applause. Fans felt his music like a comforting hand on the shoulder, but they never realized how carefully he guarded himself from fame. That distance was not arrogance, it was survival. In an industry obsessed with spectacle, Don chose stillness. While others chased spotlights, he stepped sideways and let the music speak. His voice didn't demand attention. It earned it. Every note felt like a slow breath, like a late-night conversation with someone who truly understood heartbreak. You didn't just listen to Don Williams, you leaned into him. His tone wrapped around you, steady and reassuring, the kind of sound that made the chaos of the world fade for a moment. But that softness also hid something deeper, a man who had learned early that visibility came with cost. He was admired, adored, and yet always slightly out of reach. That boundary became clearer in 2006 when he walked away from the stage for the first time. Fans were shocked, but they shouldn't have been. His entire career had been built on slowing down, breathing, and choosing peace over noise. His farewell tour felt like a natural extension of his music, not a dramatic exit, but a quiet bow. He didn't scream, protest, or seek attention. He simply decided he had given enough, but stepping away didn't mean letting go. Music was in his bones, and that pull would not release him easily. And that wasn't the whole story. The return, no one expected. 4 years later, Don Williams came back, and the world leaned in again. In 2012, And So It Goes arrived like a familiar comfort after a long silence. Nothing about him had changed, and that was exactly the point. His voice still carried that same warmth, that same gentle certainty, as if time had politely stepped aside for him. Fans didn't rush to his concerts, they settled into them, letting the music wash over them like rain. 2 years later came Reflections, and it felt less like an album and more like a heartfelt conversation with everyone who had stayed by his side. These weren't flashy, performances meant to dazzle. They were shared moments of stillness where thousands of strangers felt connected through one man's voice. But beneath that beauty, his body was quietly betraying him. Touring had become painful. His hips were weakening, his health no longer cooperative, and the road once familiar now felt like a burden. Many artists would have pushed through anyway. Don didn't. He chose himself. He chose rest. He chose life beyond the stage. Fans felt sadness, but also respect. They knew he was irreplaceable, not just as a singer, but as a presence. And what came next would change how people remembered him. the hidden struggles that shaped his music, Don Williams wasn't just a gentle giant. He was a man who had wrestled with demons. His struggles with alcohol weighed heavily on him, influencing both his life and his music. There was regret, tension in relationships, and moments of deep reflection that many never saw. Yet instead of hiding from that darkness, he poured it into his songs. His music became therapy for him and for millions of listeners. One song carried a quiet plea for strength. Another spoke of heartbreak that never fully healed. None of it was artificial. You could hear the truth in his voice, the lived experience behind every lyric. That authenticity connected him to generations of listeners who felt seen through his music. At a time when country music began shifting toward carefree party themes, Don remained anchored in emotional honesty. While newer artists sang about celebration, he continued singing about healing. That contrast made him feel timeless. His music didn't age, it deepened. But loyalty would soon pull him into his only real public conflict, the only controversy of his life. In the summer of 1985, something small sparked an unexpected reaction. Coca-Cola replaced its original formula with New Coke, and Don Williams was not having it. Not because of politics or ego, but because of tradition. To him, Coca-Cola wasn't just a drink. It was memory, comfort, familiarity. So he told his tour manager to switch to Pepsi once the remaining bottles were gone. It was a quiet rebellion from a man known for calm. Fans were surprised, but it fit him perfectly, loyalty over trend. And in the end, Coca-Cola reversed its decision, bringing back Coca-Cola Classic. The story became almost legendary, not because of drama, but because it revealed his values. Yet real hardship was still ahead. Death, loss, and a shocking modern threat. On the 8th of September 2017, Don Williams passed away at 78 Inches, Alabama. The world mourned not just a singer, but a steady presence that had guided people through heartbreak, loneliness, and grief. His voice became even more sacred in his absence, a reminder of gentler times. Years later, something unsettling emerged. A supposed unreleased album titled God and the Horses appeared on streaming platforms. At first, fans were hopeful. Maybe forgotten recordings had surfaced. Maybe this was a hidden treasure. But within minutes, something felt wrong. The vocals lacked warmth. The cover looked artificial. Strange sounds crept into the tracks. Then came the truth. This wasn't Don Williams. It was AI. His voice had been mimicked without permission, packaged, and released for profit. His legacy had been hijacked. That wasn't just disrespect, it was dangerous. If this could happen to Don Williams, it could happen to any artist. The trust between musicians and fans was being quietly dismantled, and no one had stopped it in time. But his real legacy was still intact. The quiet man who never left. Don Williams didn't disappear when he retired, and he didn't vanish when he passed away. His presence lives in every song, every quiet moment where someone finds comfort in his music. He built a career not on noise, but on sincerity. Not on ego, but on connection. He lived simply, loved deeply, and treated people with respect. He didn't perform humility, he embodied it. Even his style reflected that truth. Worn hat, faded jeans, a man who could have walked into any diner unnoticed. In a world that keeps getting louder, his voice remains a reminder that power doesn't need to shout, it simply endures. So here's the question you'll carry beyond this video. What did Don Williams really teach us? That success doesn't require spectacle. That peace can be stronger than applause. That gentleness, when real, is unforgettable. What do you think about Don Williams? Leave your thoughts below. And if his music has ever carried you through a hard moment, share that too. Thank you, my viewer. I hope you keep it here on my channel for more discoveries on all the celebrities' untold journeys. Like, comment, and subscribe on Hajara Rama channel. Thank you so much.